welcome to today's episode, a special episode dealing with 15 digital tools every church needs. One of the most requested topics that we have at Church Answer Central, which is our home to around 1,900 church leaders who are constantly asking questions and doing things about, doing things like, what tool do I need here? What tool do I need there? And we're going to talk about 15 of them. That is not an exhaustive list, but it is some of the most important things that you need to know. What are some of the digital tools that you need? This is a special podcast series, and we are grateful for Churchteams. Churchteams is a full software suite for managing all the things that keep you up at night, letting you do really what's the most important thing. That's making disciples and building teams. So, what does it mean, Churchteams? It's a text-to-church feature in it. It has a cutting-edge tool for engaging church team software with your church. That's just one of the features. So you can imagine a church member texting the church office number with the word give or VBS or camp or whatever, and being able to engage in the life of your church. You can see the link there. Visit churchteams.com. /answers. It's a church management software. And this whole idea of the text to church is just one of the many features. Many of our churches are using Churchteams, and we're glad that they are the sponsor for this. Go to them by looking at the link, or you can just text right now the word answers to this telephone number, 817-677-9850. And you can also see that in the show notes. Answers to 817-677-9850. Okay, let's get into this. Sam, we need a website. We got to have a website.
Yeah, what was once a novelty many years ago has become a necessity. And part of what you need to do with your website is obviously make sure that it is connected to the Google ecosystem. I think many churches may have set up a domain name, which is great. By the way, if you have not done that, you don't exist without a website.
Right.
People, if someone can't find something on you out there as a website, they're not coming to your church. It's just an absolute necessity. But I would also say that the thing to do is to make sure that you connect your website to the Google universe. So when people search, they're often searching for churches near me, or Baptist churches in Bradenton, or Presbyterian churches in wherever. And these names are going to come up, and often they're mapped. And if you have not claimed your real estate via Google, they're not going to be as connected. So it's a very simple process, actually. Just make sure that you've gone through the claiming of your actual address on Google. You actually submit a snail mail form, and they send you back all the information. And you can do that just by Googling the name of your church and the address, and it'll ask you if you are the business owner. And if so, go through that process if you have not done it. It's a very important process. That enables you actually to upload photos. It enables you to put your hours, send updates. So it's not just a website. It is making sure that your website is connected to particularly the Google ecosystem.
What should a website have on that homepage? It should have the physical address of the church on the homepage. And what I mean by that is, if you want to look at your website on a mobile, in a mobile form, go to your smartphone, put in your URL, put in your church website address, and see if immediately you see the address, the physical address, for anybody wanting to put that in the GPS system. Secondly, times of worship service. There are other things you can put there, but those on the homepage, immediately visible when you put that URL in there, you should do that. Every church needs a website. Every church needs a website that's connected to the Google ecosystem. Every church needs a website that is clear about times of service and about location. And we'll be talking about streaming as well, where you can stream on your own site, and there's other places as well. But we'll leave that for another time. Every church needs a website. Every church needs to be on social media. Sam, my problem is there's so many choices out there. I don't know where to go.
Well, there's three big ones for the church, and that's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And Facebook and Instagram in particular are going to be important. The church presence on Twitter is a little wonky. I don't see too many churches having a large footprint on Twitter, but I still think you need to claim your handle. I still think you need to be able, to take that footprint that is your name. So even if you are not on those social media platforms regularly, I still think it's good to kind of, if we have West Bradenton, for instance, at my church, at West Bradenton, and we have that for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Most of your people are likely going to interact with your church on Facebook, but Instagram is rising in popularity. There are plenty of younger people, and by younger, I mean my kids' ages, um, 10, 12, 14 years old. They don't even have a Facebook page. That's for their parents. They tend to be a little more on Instagram. So I would say it is important that you have a presence on both. Um, Instagram in particular is obviously photographs. So make sure that you are telling the story of your church on Instagram. Facebook, you can communicate some more information like, hey, the church newsletter is up. Click on this link. Since you can't necessarily put links in Instagram, it needs to be more of a photo narrative, if you will, that occurs there. So you use them in different ways. Make sure that you're not using them all in the same ways. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram have different, really different ways they tell the story. Twitter is definitely more text. Facebook is a kind of a combination of text and photographs, and Instagram would be definitely more photo driven.
The point that often arises on social media is, oh, it's so much to keep up with it. It's just too much hassle for us. These bigger churches have part-time, maybe even full-time paid people to do it. We can't do it. Got that comment from a pastor of a church running a little over 100 in worship attendance. I challenged him on this. I said, next time you have the gathered worship, if you have a time of announcements, tell them you need someone to help you lead your social media and see. Just, I don't really like the idea of doing a blanket invitation for volunteers, but just see what happens. He had two volunteers. They're both doing an incredible job and they love doing it. I belong to an HOA, and we had needed social media. I had no idea. I wasn't about to do it, but I put it out there. Who can volunteer? A lady by the name of Rebecca came along, and she says, "I'll be all over this." And she's doing an incredible job. And she is my age, which means she is older, but she understands Instagram, she understands Facebook, she understands Twitter, and in a way that I don't know it, she understands TikTok. But I don't even want to get into that because I don't
I think
understand that
I
at
think
all.
TikTok actually has a lot of potential. I am not as skilled with TikTok, so I really don't want to speak to it. I would say Snapchat's probably the hardest one to utilize for a church, but I do think that the potential for TikTok is there. It's kind of an unproven world right now, although it's very popular. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram tend to be a little more established, of course. But I would also say it's worth your while to venture into the TikTok world. And if you figure it out, well, guess what? You probably need to do a webinar or a podcast on how to utilize it, because not too many people have figured that one out. At least utilizing it for your church. There's a lot of people who utilize it personally. So yeah, social media is very important. I would say to the church or to the pastor that says I don't have time. Um, well, it's kind of like you don't have time not to, but it does not take that much to post twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than nothing. And, that's twice a week. Once you figure this stuff out, you're talking about 20, 30 minutes max. You have the time. It's just you need to take the time to learn it and to understand it. And that may take you a little bit, but nothing wrong with getting there and experimenting. Website, critically important. Social media, critically important. This third point, little different, but also very important. And that is church management software, sometimes called CMS or CHMS.
Big, big phrase that has a lot of different parts that could be in it. And that's why we love Churchteams, because of their church management software and what they offer and all the different parts that they offer. But give us just an overview of what we mean by CMS or CHMS, church management software.
Yeah, church management software does any number of things. So it can do something like manage contributions, which is how people give. It can manage the giving mechanism, the digital giving mechanism that you have, your online giving. It's a database. It helps you house all the information of your people. It also is a communication tool in that it's not just input. We have your data, we have our members' data, but it's also output in that it can, send texts to your community, send newsletters. That's why I like Churchteams. It's a really solid church management software system, and theirs
Solid
is among
and affordable too.
yes, yeah, and it's among the best. So it's definitely one to check out. Again, you can visit churchteams.com/answers and see that. But church management software is well, let's just put it this way: if you're still doing your books by hand, if you're still writing your membership rolls by hand, it's time. It's time. And I say that jokingly, and I know there's probably people listening like, is there people still really doing it? There are churches that are still managing their books with handwritten or typed data. And it is absolutely time to switch over. This is a good time of year also to think about if you need to make a change in terms of CHMS. It's good to be thinking about that before year end. What are you going to budget for this? In the case of Churchteams, it's obviously very affordable, so it wouldn't be too much of a pinch on the budget. But it is. You need to assess your church management software every year and ask yourself the question: is this doing what I want it to do? Is this particular tool the one that I need for my church?
And many tools, many of the church management software systems will have so much that if you buy it all, it'll probably be too much. But others will have a good selection, but be highly affordable. So when you look at church management system software, look at the features and look at the cost and just do a comparison of what you want and what you're paying. That's why, again, I'm confident with our sponsor, Churchteams, that you'll find it to be among the leaders that are there. Church management software you mentioned can include communication systems. In my opening part about Churchteams, we talked about their text to church feature. That is just one aspect of communications that they do within a church management software.
You know what I do now?
What?
Every time I schedule a meeting, I schedule a text to go out to the people in that meeting. We've utilized we don't often text everybody in the church, but when we do, it's for something very important. And it gets the word out very quickly. The read rate on our newsletter is 50%, which is pretty solid for a newsletter.
That is really good.
So we have 50% read rate, but do you know what the read rate on our texts are?
92.
96. 96%. So we keep a very active and up-to-date texting system, and it's a great way to communicate. You don't want to overutilize it because people will unsubscribe. But I have a council meeting coming up, church council meeting. I'm going to schedule a text to go out to all of our council members to remind them, like usually about 24 hours before the meeting. I'll send an email reminder and then about a week before, and then I'll send a text reminder the day before. And it really helps people. You think you're over communicating, you're not. I love the text system as reminders for certain groups in the church.
Church giving software can be a part of church management software. So just to hear that clearly, there are a lot of CMS systems that have church giving solutions, but we wanted to point out that you need a church giving solution as one of your digital solutions. I mean, can you imagine WSB without a church giving solution software?
I can, because when I came here 7 years ago, we did not have one. So I know exactly what it's like.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were still telling people to put checks in the offering plate when I got here.
You'll still accept them though.
Oh, of course. So the thing about giving solutions and our particular philosophy here at my church is we provide all options. So if you want to give via check in the plate when it passes, we still do that. If you want to give online, we do that. We do text to give. And if you want to bring in, several pounds of gold, just, the raw material, we will accept that too. Which, by the way, I joke, that has happened. We have had somebody, I don't know who, because I don't know who gives what, for our capital campaign, bring us literally a bag of gold. It was coins,
Hmm.
gold bullion, and we liquidated them immediately. And this person happened to be a very generous person. It was a substantial amount of money. So we provide, we accept all options. We accept required distributions, those annual distributions with those who are retired, and we're set up to receive crypto as well.
Wow.
Not as popular as other giving methods, but yeah, we do it all. So these giving solutions are very important. 50% of what is given through our church is now given online, which when I got here was zero because we didn't give people the option. When you open up more options, people tend to give more. Text to give, very important. Online giving, very important. You don't have to give up your current methods, but you can offer more and different ways of giving. And when you do that, you actually capture a group that you otherwise wouldn't capture. There are young people that don't have checkbooks, believe it or not. They literally don't know how to write a check. You're not going
And
to
they
get
won't
checks
have
from
to in
them.
the future.
Yeah, and it's going to phase out at some point. Well, how do they give? How do our young people give? Text to give, believe it or not. That's what they want to do. So provide the option. Church giving solutions, very important.
It was funny. I did made a payment to, to a service personnel that helped us with something, and I said, "Can I make a digital payment?" Oh yeah. He gave me his daughter's Venmo account.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
so I had to send it to the daughter, who then somehow got the money to mom and dad on that. So, yeah, those it's very popular with the younger generations. But as you well know, I'm on 3 different digital giving systems outside the church. I mean, just that is a part of who I am. And I signed up for Text to Give several years ago, not thinking I would ever use it. And I was sitting in a service, and there was some type of emphasis that was going on, and they said, well, we're going to do this emphasis for a week, and I was fearful that I would forget, and I just did my text to give, and there it went.
Hmm.
That actual moment, the money went to the church. So church giving solutions are a part of some church management software, but we wanted to put that as something that is unique into itself. And really, many churches, Sam, became acclimated to this. Over half of them started it as a result of the pandemic that did not have it before. Because
Yes.
guess what? There was no plate to be passed because there was no in person worship service. We also recommend this, a church leaders connection center. And what I mean by that is your pastor, your staff, whether the pastors and staff, whether they are part time, full time, several of them, say a church of 40 or 50, it may have a Bible pastor and then a couple of volunteer positions, something like that. Your church leaders need a community outside the church. You don't know how much they need it. And if you are a leader, you need that. If you are a layperson, you need to point your leaders to this. Most of your church leaders, pastors and staff, do not have a community where they are connecting to others for encouragement, support, and prayers. There are some out there, but I have my favorite, and that favorite happens to be Church Answers Central, which is our
I'm
community of
I'm shocked.
1,900 people. Yeah, you shocked? We spend a lot of time there.
We do. Yeah, and it's worth the while. Certainly.
Well, again, we're going over the basics right now, and we would say the basics are a website, social media, church management software, making certain that you have a church giving solution, and a church leaders connection center. You can go to churchanswers.com and click on to. Well, we'll have it in the show notes where you can look at clicking on there, so that you'll have support, encouragement, and prayer, and sometimes even accountability. These are the top 5. not necessarily the top 5 in the most important, but the first 5 in the basics that we are talking about. So we'll continue this series on 15 digital tools every church needs. It's a fun series. It's 3 parts. This part 1 has been the basics. We'll be going to part 2. You'll be able to turn to that just right after this, because we're allowing you to binge on these 3 in the special edition podcast series, and we're going to get to some of the most helpful. We've gotten to the basics. Now, what are some of the most helpful? Always thank you, Churchteams, for your sponsorship of this. Don't forget, if you're interested in that church management software, texting, giving, etc., it is a incredible church management software system. Go to churchteams.com/answers, or you can text answers at 817-677-9850. Stay tuned. You can go right to it from right now, but stay tuned for part 2 of 15 digital tools every church needs, as we'll be going from the basics to the next 5, the helpful. We'll see you there, and we'll continue to help our churches, your churches, and all churches get healthier together.